Having just come into a $5 million inheritance, Olivia planned to drive home to visit her parents in the Poconos. She turned on her car's dashcam and discovered that Ethan, her husband, had cut the brake lines. Olivia pretended not to know, handing the car keys to her sister-in-law to go on a trip with her boyfriend. 3 hours later, the State Highway Patrol called. Ethan's entire family screamed hysterically, collapsing to the floor. The digital clock on the nightstand flashed 3 a.m. A dim red glow cast shadows on the ceiling like bloodstains. Olivia's throat was parched, bitter as if she had swallowed a handful of ash. An invisible unease tightened its grip on her chest, pressing down on her breath. Olivia shifted slightly, intending to reach out beside her for the familiar warmth of her husband, Ethan, but her searching hand was met only by a cold emptiness and the stiff, slick surface of the sheets. "Where did he go?" Olivia asked herself. Her drowsiness vanished instantly, replaced by a faint anxiety. Maybe he went down to the study to finish some paperwork. Lately, Ethan had been complaining that work at his construction firm was incredibly stressful. Olivia reached for her phone, planning to open the security camera feed in the living room to see if her husband was there. This habit had only started since she got a British short-hair cat that loved to race around at night. Olivia's fingers danced across the touchscreen in the darkness. But perhaps because she wasn't fully awake, she mistakenly tapped the Dashcam Manager app for the $200,000 high-end European SUV she had just bought last week. Olivia had been planning to drive this car to the Poconos the next morning to visit her parents and consult with them about investing the $5 million inheritance she had just received from her childless aunt overseas. The phone screen lit up, displaying the view from the garage, dimly lit by a yellow bulb. The scene that followed made Olivia feel as if the blood in her body had frozen solid from head to toe. Ethan, the model husband she had trusted for so long, was lying on his back under her car. He wore a gray sweatsuit and rubber gloves. One hand held a small flashlight between his teeth, while the other wielded a pair of sharp, steel wire cutters. His movements weren't clumsy but precise, cold, and without hesitation. Every time the cutters were raised and then clamped down, a brake line, fragile yet holding Olivia's life in its hands, snapped. Olivia clamped a hand over her mouth to stop a horrified scream from escaping her throat. Hot tears streamed down her cheeks, but her heart felt as cold as ice. Why? Why would the man who had slept beside her for 3 years want to kill her? Was the love he had shown all this time just a foolish act to cover his cruel ambition? Just then, through the ultra-sensitive sound recording system of the expensive dashcam which Olivia had secretly fitted with a backup battery for 24-hour recording, she heard Ethan's phone ring. He took the flashlight from his mouth, answered the call, and put it on speaker, placing it on the cold cement floor so his hands were free to continue his vile work. The voice of a woman, sweet as honey but laced with a chilling cruelty, came through. "Honey, are you done yet? Our son and I can't wait. My belly is getting bigger every day. Your son is kicking up a storm. Now, don't forget to clean everything up. That $5 million has to belong to our son. Your stupid wife has had her fun." Ethan tightened a bolt while laughing cynically. His voice echoed in the empty garage, piercing Olivia's ears like 1,000 needles driving into her head. "Don't you worry, sweetheart. I'm cutting the brake lines right now. Tomorrow she'll be going down the steep mountain roads. When she hits that sharp turn, nothing can save her. Once she's gone, her entire inheritance will fall into my hands as her legal husband. When that happens, I'll bring you and our boy to live in this house." The phone in Olivia's hand fell onto the soft comforter, but the sound felt like a clap of thunder in her heart. So all his concern these past few days, checking her car, telling her to drive carefully, it was all just preparation to send her to hell. $5 million, a son to carry on his name, and a beautiful mistress. That was everything he wanted, and Olivia was the only obstacle that had to be removed. Olivia lay back in bed, pulling the covers over her entire body. She was trembling violently, not from the cold, but from overwhelming disgust and heartbreak. In the darkness, Olivia bit her lip until it bled to prevent any sobs from escaping. This physical pain was nothing compared to the gaping wound in her heart. Tonight, the naive wife who trusted her husband had died. What rose in her place was a cornered woman with a heart full of vengeance. The morning sun pierced through the curtains, illuminating the luxurious but cold bedroom. It chased away the night's darkness, but couldn't warm Olivia's frozen heart. Olivia sat at her vanity, staring at her pale face in the mirror. The dark circles under her eyes were a testament to her battle last night against pain and hatred. Slowly, Olivia applied a thick layer of foundation to cover her exhaustion and a coat of deep red lipstick to give herself a false sense of energy. Taking a deep breath, Olivia descended the stairs, trying to make her steps as calm as possible. In the kitchen, the rich aroma of coffee mingled with the smell of fresh bagels, creating a picture of a peaceful family. But it was all a facade. Ethan sat there, still in his crisp white shirt, holding the business section of the newspaper while whistling cheerfully. When he saw Olivia come down, he looked up and smiled warmly, as usual. His gaze was so gentle that if Olivia hadn't seen what happened last night, she might have continued to drown in this fake sweetness. "You're awake, sweetie?" his deep, soft voice murmured. He pulled out a chair for Olivia. "I got your favorite bagels. Come on, eat up before they get cold. You'll need your energy for the drive. The roads to the Poconos have a lot of steep descents. You be careful, okay?" Olivia stared at the steaming coffee. Her stomach churned, but she forced a smile and replied in a soft voice, "Yes, dear. So thoughtful of you. Did you check the car properly? I feel a little worried." Ethan paused for a moment, his eyes avoiding Olivia's before returning to normal. "You worry too much. It's a brand new $200,000 car, and I took it to the official dealership for another checkup yesterday. It's perfectly safe, don't worry." Just then, the doorbell rang loudly, shattering the awkward atmosphere between them. The door opened, and Tiffany, Ethan's favorite sister with bleached blonde hair, walked in with a tattooed man. That's her new boyfriend, reportedly a debt collector. Tiffany didn't even greet anyone. She tossed her designer bag onto the sofa and went straight to the dining table. "Ethan, Olivia, I'm borrowing your new SUV today, okay? My car's in the shop, but I promised Shane I'd take him and his friends up to the mountains. It would be embarrassing to show up in a junker." Sharon, Olivia's mother-in-law, came out of the kitchen carrying a plate of warm cinnamon rolls. Hearing her favorite daughter's request, she immediately agreed, her voice shrill. "Oh, just let your sister borrow it. A car just sitting there will get ruined. Let your sister use it to warm up the engine. You're rich now, don't be so stingy with your own sister-in-law." Olivia glanced at Ethan, seeing his face turn pale and sweat begin to bead on his forehead. Ethan knew perfectly well that the car was now a moving coffin, but he couldn't tell the truth, nor could he forbid it too strongly for fear of his secret being exposed. Olivia pretended to frown, putting on a hesitant face. "Well, but I was going to take that car to the Poconos to see my parents. Besides, it was just serviced. The engine isn't stable yet. How about Tiffany takes my old car?" Hearing that, Tiffany shot up like she'd been scalded. She slammed her hand on the table, stood up, and pointed at Olivia's face. "Don't be so cheap, Olivia. You get a little inheritance and suddenly you're looking down on your husband's family. Your old car is fine for a dusty road trip, but when I want to borrow the new one for a day out, you say no. Mom, look at my sister-in-law." Sharon put her hands on her hips, glaring at Olivia as if she wanted to set her on fire. "You're being ridiculous, Olivia. It's just one car, and you're being so calculative with your own sister. What kind of sister-in-law are you? Ethan, say something. Are you scared of your wife?" Ethan was caught in the crossfire. On one side were his pride and his family. On the other was the fear of his secret being revealed. He stammered, "Maybe it's better if Olivia just pout." But seeing the threatening look from his mother and his sister's pout, coupled with his own deep-seated ego, Ethan let out a long sigh. Perhaps he thought the mountain roads were easy enough, or perhaps he thought luck would be on his side. Olivia saw the cowardice and cruelty in her husband's eyes. Her heart was completely numb. With a faint smile, she picked up the car keys and tossed them onto the marble countertop. The sound of metal clinking was sharp and cold. "Fine, since Mom has spoken, I'll lend it to her. Be careful, Tiffany. She's got a lot of power. One tap on the gas, and you'll be pinned to your seat." Tiffany snatched the keys as if she'd struck gold, laughing with satisfaction until her eyes narrowed. "Now that's a good sister-in-law. Thanks, Olivia." Ethan started to reach out to stop her, but it was too late. His hand froze in midair and then fell limply to his side. Olivia watched Tiffany and her boyfriend walk out cheerfully, then turned her gaze back to Ethan, who stood frozen. Those keys didn't just open a luxury car, they opened the gates of hell for their family. The roar of the SUV's engine faded as it disappeared beyond the large iron gate, leaving a chilling silence in the lavish home. Olivia remained on the leather sofa, holding a fruit knife and slowly peeling an apple in one long, thin, even strip. Her calmness was a stark contrast to Ethan's agitation. Her husband paced back and forth in the living room, occasionally glancing at the clock, then pretending to pick up a newspaper, but his eyes kept darting around nervously. Sweat dampened his forehead even though the air conditioning was set to a low temperature. He was scared. Olivia knew it. But his fear wasn't for his sister's safety. It was fear that his crime would fail, or worse, that his weak conscience was gnawing at him. Sharon had gone up to her room to rest, leaving the two of them in this awkward atmosphere. Olivia bit into a piece of apple. The sweet, crisp flavor melted in her mouth but felt bitter in her throat. "Ethan, dear," Olivia said softly, breaking the tension, "why do you look so anxious? Tiffany is a good driver, and that new car is very advanced, full of safety features. You're worried to the point of looking pale." Ethan jumped as if a thief had been caught red-handed. He turned to face Olivia, his eyes flashing with panic for a second before he quickly masked it with a stiff, forced smile. "Oh, I'm just a little worried. The roads up the mountain have a lot of sharp turns, and that girl loves to speed, especially going with that boyfriend of hers. I just don't feel at ease." Olivia stared deep into his eyes, thinking to herself, is he worried about Tiffany, or is he praying that the car plunges into a ravine with me inside it? Time ticked by, second by second. The rhythmic ticking of the wall clock sounded like a hammer nailing a coffin shut. 1 hour, 2 hours passed. The silence in the house grew thicker, pressing on their chests like lead. Ethan could no longer maintain his false calm. He tossed the newspaper onto the table, his hand trembling as he reached for his phone, intending to call, then stopping. He did this repeatedly. He was afraid. Afraid that no one would answer, or afraid of hearing news that was outside his perfect scenario. Suddenly, Ethan's phone rang, tearing through the silence and making them both jump. Ethan looked at the screen, an unknown number. His hand shook so violently he nearly dropped the phone on the marble floor. He took a deep breath, trying to compose himself, then pressed the answer button. His voice was choked with tension. "Hello? Yes, this is he." Olivia sat still, holding her breath, watching every change in her husband's expression, from confusion to shock, and finally to an overwhelming terror that drained his face of all color. The phone in Ethan's hand fell to the floor with a dry clack. He stumbled backward, his legs giving way, and he collapsed onto the cold floor. His mouth hung open, his purplish lips trembling, unable to form words. Tears streamed down his cheeks, not of grief, but of the devastation of his plan. No, it can't be. Why, Tiffany? Why did it have to be Tiffany? His heart-wrenching screams echoed through the house, sounding like the howl of a mortally wounded animal, full of despair and pain. Sharon, hearing the strange noises from upstairs, rushed down. Seeing her son on the floor, she was shocked and ran to him. "Ethan, what is it, son? What's wrong with you?" Olivia immediately ran over, playing her part as the concerned wife. She held Ethan's shoulders but whispered in his ear, her voice as cold as ice, every word a knife slicing into his bleeding heart. "What did you say, dear? Who was it supposed to be? Tell me." "The one who was supposed to die was me, wasn't it?" Ethan looked up, meeting Olivia's gaze with bloodshot eyes. In his look was an overwhelming fear, as if seeing a demon appear in broad daylight. He opened his mouth, intending to say something, but his throat was choked. Only a meaningless, hoarse sound came out. Just then, Sharon snatched the phone from the floor, pressed it to her ear, and then let out a blood-curdling scream before fainting. The conscience's punishment for their family had just begun. An ambulance wailed, its siren cutting through the thick fog of the mountain pass, carrying us to the accident site below a steep descent. Olivia sat in the front passenger seat, her hands gripping the dashboard tightly, her eyes staring straight ahead. Meanwhile, Ethan sat in the back, trembling like a dry leaf, muttering incoherent sentences. The air inside the vehicle was thick with the smell of disinfectant and the scent of death, but it was nothing compared to the acrid smell of burning rubber and gasoline rising from the bottom of the ravine. The State Highway Patrol had blocked off the scene. Yellow police tape fluttered in the cold afternoon wind, creating a gruesome sight. When we got out of the car, the scene that greeted Olivia was something she would likely never forget, even though she had prepared herself for it. The $200,000 pearl white SUV, Olivia's pride and her husband's murder weapon, was now just a mangled heap of scrap metal at the bottom of a nearly 300-foot ravine. Black smoke still billowed from the engine compartment, mixing with the mountain fog to form a ghostly shape. Seeing the sight, all strength seemed to leave Ethan's legs. He collapsed on the side of the road, vomiting a mixture of green and yellow fluid. His body shook violently, like someone in the throes of a severe malaria attack. A highway patrol officer with a sun-weathered face approached us, holding a notepad. His voice was heavy and sad, but professional. "Sir, ma'am, family of the vehicle's owner? We're very sorry for your loss. From our initial investigation of the scene and the tire marks, the car experienced total brake failure while descending a steep grade at high speed, causing it to lose control and go straight into the ravine. The two occupants in the vehicle most likely did not survive. The condition of the bodies is not intact due to the severe impact and subsequent fire." The words brake failure struck Ethan like a bolt of lightning, causing him to curl up, his face ashen. He knew better than anyone why the car's brakes had failed. He knew exactly whose life each cut he made last night had claimed. Not the ex-wife he despised, but the younger sister he cherished most. Olivia stood beside him, the mountain wind whipping her disheveled hair. She brushed it back, hiding the cold gaze with which she observed her husband's terrified expression. Olivia said softly, her voice trembling with manufactured shock and grief, "Oh my God, how could this happen? Our car was just serviced yesterday. How could the brakes fail? Was it a mechanical error?" Olivia's question was like pouring salt on Ethan's gaping wound. He turned to look at her, his eyes begging her to stop talking. But how could Olivia stop? Right now, she had to let him feel the deepest helplessness as he witnessed the result of his own actions. The officer looked at Olivia sympathetically, shaking his head and sighing. "We will investigate the technical aspects further, ma'am, but the scene shows no signs of braking at all before the car went over. Please, let us escort you both to the county hospital morgue for identification, although it might be a bit difficult." Ethan had to be supported by two officers to stand. He dragged his feet heavily toward the police car, his head bowed like a sinner walking to the gallows. Olivia followed behind, looking at the broad back that was once her firm support, now trembling violently. Olivia felt no pity, only a sadness for the fate of man. Greed had turned a human into a demon, and now that demon had turned to devour what it loved most. The road to the morgue felt endless. Dark clouds hung overhead, signaling an approaching storm, not just a storm of nature, but one that would swallow her husband's entire family in a mire of sin. The county hospital morgue was bone-chillingly cold. The sharp smell of chemicals stung the nose, making Olivia's stomach churn. Pale, white fluorescent lights illuminated rows of cold, stainless steel tables where two bodies lay still and silent under clean white sheets. Ethan stood frozen in the doorway, his hands gripping the steel doorframe tightly as if to keep himself from falling. His breath came in heavy, ragged gasps, like a drowning man. He was afraid the most primal human fear when confronted with death, and even more so when confronting his own victims. An old forensic doctor with thick glasses approached one of the tables. His voice was heavy in the silence. "The family can identify the deceased now. Due to the severe accident and fire, the condition of the bodies is badly damaged. We've tried to do some reconstruction, but please prepare yourselves." Slowly, he lifted the white sheet, revealing the charred and shapeless face that had been Tiffany. All that remained recognizable was a gold necklace with a 4-leaf clover charm that Ethan had given her for her birthday last year, still glinting mockingly against the scorched skin. Seeing the necklace, Ethan let out a mournful scream. He lunged forward, embracing his sister's body, tears and snot covering his face. "Tiffany, my little sister, how did this happen? It's my fault. I hurt you. I killed you." He sobbed uncontrollably, banging his head hard against the edge of the stainless steel table. His wails echoed in the cold room, making everyone present turn away in pity. But in his cries, Olivia knew there was less remorse for his sister's loss than there was fear of his own great sin. He was crying for himself, for his perfect plan that had been shattered. Taking advantage of the moment when everyone was focused on Ethan's agony, Olivia slowly approached, placing a hand on her husband's shoulder as if to comfort him. She whispered in his ear, a sound only he could hear. Her voice was as soft as a breath, but carried the weight of 1,000 tons. "Ethan, dear, why are you crying so hard? Isn't this what you wanted? For the car's brakes to fail? It's a good thing I had a stomachache today, so I couldn't go with you as planned. Otherwise, the person lying there, that charred body, would be me. Don't you think this is fortunate, dear?" Ethan's crying stopped instantly, as if he were being strangled. He turned his head, staring at Olivia with wide, terrified eyes, his pupils dilated in horror. In that moment, he didn't see Olivia as his wife, but as a smiling demon from hell. He stumbled backward, his legs giving way, nearly falling, his mouth hung open. You... He was beginning to realize this coincidence was no coincidence, and the wife he thought was a fool might know everything. Just then, a morgue attendant brought in a bag containing personal effects found at the scene. Tiffany's designer bag was partially burned. Inside were melted lipstick, shattered powder, and a crumpled piece of paper, an ultrasound result. Olivia immediately bent down to pick up the paper, pretending to accidentally drop it right in front of Sharon, who had just regained consciousness and was being helped in. The black and white ultrasound film showed the shape of a small fetus. At the bottom, it was clearly written, "Gestational age, 8 weeks." Seeing the film, Sharon's eyes widened. She lunged forward, snatching the paper with trembling hands. "What is this? Tiffany! Tiffany was pregnant!" Olivia covered her mouth, exclaiming with a shocked and sad expression, "Oh, Tiffany was pregnant. Why didn't she say anything? So there were 2 lives lost. My poor sister-in-law." Olivia's words were like the final knife thrust into Sharon's heart. She clutched the ultrasound film tightly, screamed, and then collapsed onto the cold floor in a dead faint. Ethan stood there, staring at his unconscious mother, at his sister's body, at the ultrasound film. His entire world had shattered into 1,000,000 pieces. He had killed his sister, and also his niece or nephew, who never had a chance to see the world. The investigation team's office at the county police station felt cramped and stuffy with the smell of cigarette smoke. An old ceiling fan spun slowly, making a rhythmic creaking sound, as if counting down the time to a verdict. Olivia and Ethan sat facing a senior investigator, a man with graying hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see right through you. Ethan sat trembling in his chair, his hands clenched so tightly his knuckles were white. Sweat soaked his body, even though it was late afternoon and growing cool. He didn't dare lift his face, just stared at the coffee-stained wooden table. The investigator tapped his pen on the table. The dry sound made Ethan flinch. In a low but authoritative voice, he said, "Sir, ma'am, please explain the events of this morning. Why was the victim driving your car? And before she left, did you notice anything unusual about the vehicle?" Ethan stammered, his lips trembling, but no words came out. His throat felt like it was stuffed with cotton. He was afraid that one wrong word would reveal the truth he was hiding. Seeing her husband silent, Olivia spoke up, her voice trembling, her eyes welling with tears. She played her part as a grieving sister-in-law. "Officer, this morning my sister-in-law came to our house. She really liked my new car, so she insisted on borrowing it to go on a trip with her boyfriend. At first, I didn't want to let her, sir, because the car is new and I wasn't used to it. I was afraid she wouldn't be safe." Olivia paused, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief, glancing at the trembling Ethan beside her. "But my husband, Ethan, felt too sorry for his sister," Olivia continued, her voice holding a deep, subtle accusation. "He accused me of being a petty sister-in-law. He said, 'It's just a car, don't be so stingy.' He was the one who pressured me to give her the keys. I just did what my husband said, so I gave them to her. If only I had insisted on saying no, maybe this wouldn't have happened. It's all my fault, sir. Because I was weak." Olivia sobbed, burying her face on the table, her shoulders shaking. Her words sounded self-blaming, but they were slowly tightening a noose around Ethan's neck. She had cleverly shifted the responsibility for giving away the car to her husband, turning him into the person who had directly sent his sister to her death. The senior investigator narrowed his eyes, his gaze shifting from Olivia to Ethan with suspicion. He asked Ethan, his voice firmer, "Mr. Ethan, is what your wife said true? Were you the one who told your wife to give the car to the victim?" Ethan lifted his ashen face, his eyes filled with overwhelming panic. He wanted to deny it, to say no, but Olivia's words were the truth. He couldn't deny that he had forced his wife for the sake of his pride and to cover his crime. He nodded weakly, his voice a barely audible whisper. "Yes, sir. I told her to." "Did you know the condition of the car at the time? It was a new car. Why would the brakes fail?" The investigator pressed, his gaze like a drill boring into Ethan's soul. Ethan trembled, sweat dripping down his cheeks. He stammered, I don't know. It was a new car. Maybe a technical defect, a factory flaw. How would I know?" His excessive nervousness and fear did not escape the experienced officer's eyes. After hearing Olivia's explanation about handing over the keys, the senior investigator nodded slowly, his eyes still fixed on Ethan's pale face. He turned a page in the case file, his voice heavy. "Regarding the car, I want to confirm again. According to initial reports, this was a newly purchased and recently serviced vehicle. During your last use, did either of you notice any abnormal signs, like strange noises, an odd feeling in the brake pedal, or anything else?" This question was like an invisible trap. Ethan quickly shook his head, the sweat on his forehead growing heavier. "No, sir. Nothing at all. The car was brand new. I drove it and it felt perfectly smooth. No problems. I'm sure this was just a sudden mechanical failure." He tried hard to emphasize the car's perfection, to shift the blame to the manufacturer and cover his crime. Olivia, sitting beside him, wrung the tear-soaked handkerchief, but her heart was remarkably calm. She knew this was the best opportunity to plant suspicion, to turn Ethan's fear into reality. Slowly, Olivia lifted her face, her red-rimmed eyes looking straight at the officer. Her voice was shaky but clear. "Officer, my husband says that, but I don't think so, sir. A few days ago, when I came home from work and parked the car in the garage, I heard a strange clicking sound from under the car." Ethan immediately turned to Olivia, his eyes wide as if he wanted to swallow her whole. He was about to open his mouth to interrupt, but Olivia was faster. "At the time, I was going to tell Ethan to help me check it," Olivia continued, her voice full of regret and innocence. "But I was so tired I forgot. This morning, I was planning to remind him, but he was in such a hurry to pressure me into giving the keys to Tiffany, I didn't get a chance to say anything. Could that strange noise have been a bad sign, sir?" The investigator narrowed his eyes, the pen in his hand stopping. He stared at Ethan sharply. "A strange noise under the car. Mr. Ethan, your wife mentioned this. You're the one who always checks the car. Why didn't you find it?" Ethan's neck felt stiff, his face turning from red to pale. He stammered, his hands fidgeting. I'm sure my wife misheard. There was no noise. Don't talk nonsense and confuse the officer." He tried to deny, but his excessive panic only made things more suspicious. Olivia lowered her head, pretending to be frightened by her husband's anger, whispering softly, "I heard it clearly, dear. It was a metal-on-metal clicking sound. It was very scary. If I had known this would happen, I would have forced you to check it again. I would never have given the car to Tiffany. This is all my fault for being negligent." The investigator said nothing more. He slowly made notes in his notebook, but the way he tapped his pen showed he was starting to connect the dots. A new, serviced car suddenly has a strange noise. The husband insists on giving the car to his sister, while the wife heard the noise but was ignored. These details, when put together, painted a very unfavorable picture for Ethan. Leaving the police station, the sky had already darkened. Dim streetlights cast long, thin shadows of Ethan. He walked ahead, his steps heavy, as if weighed down by stones. He occasionally glanced back at Olivia, his look full of resentment and suspicion. The large house was submerged in darkness. Grief shrouded every corner, so heavy it was suffocating. After taking the sobbing Sharon to her room, Ethan didn't say a single word to Olivia. He went straight into his study and locked the door from the inside. From outside, Olivia heard the clinking of liquor bottles, the sound of a cap being twisted off, and then the sound of gulping. He was drinking to drown his fear, to run from the bitter reality he had created. Olivia returned to the master bedroom. The room that was once a warm nest of love now felt as cold as a tomb. Olivia didn't turn on the lights, sitting and hugging her knees on the large bed, the darkness threatening to swallow her. Tonight would be a long night, not just for her, but for this entire family. The sound of her mother-in-law's sobs could be faintly heard from the next room, interspersed with the sounds of Ethan's frustrated yells and things being thrown from downstairs, creating a symphony of suffering. Olivia picked up her phone. The blue light from the screen reflected on her expressionless face. It was time for her to prepare for the real battle, the battle to demand justice for herself. Olivia dialed her father's number. On the other end, the phone was answered quickly. Her father's deep, warm, and anxious voice made Olivia's eyes well up. "Olivia, it's Dad, honey. How are you? I heard about the accident. You're okay, right?" Olivia's throat tightened. All the disappointment and pain she had held back all day seemed to crumble, but she knew she couldn't be weak now. She took a deep breath, trying to keep her voice as calm as possible. "I'm fine, Dad. I'm okay." "But Dad, this isn't as simple as an accident. Ethan, he intended to kill me." He cut the brake lines. "But the one who drove the car was Tiffany, his sister." There was a moment of silence on the other end. Olivia heard an angry sigh and the sound of a fist hitting a table. "What? That bastard dared to do that to my daughter? I'm coming over right now. I'll finish him." Her father's voice trembled with rage, but Olivia quickly stopped him. "Not yet, Dad. I have a plan. I need your help with something more important. Please contact Mr. Davis, our family lawyer. I want him to immediately prepare the documents to freeze all our joint assets." After calming her father and giving detailed instructions, Olivia hung up and made another call to her lawyer. In the darkness, Olivia could hear her own heartbeat, mingling with the sound of rain that had begun to fall against the window. Ethan was still raging in his study, taking his anger out on inanimate objects. But he didn't know that right above his head, the wife he had underestimated was slowly tightening a noose around his neck. As the night wore on, the rain grew heavier. The wind howled through the cracks in the door, sounding like the wails of mourners. Olivia lay down, but her eyes remained wide open, staring at the ceiling. Her hand gripped her phone tightly, as if it were her only lifeline. She finally allowed herself to think about the early days of their marriage, about the promises Ethan had made. They were now just sharp, shattered pieces of memory that cut her heart, but that pain was in the past. What remained was a cold vigilance. The next morning, Olivia awoke to find the storm had passed, leaving behind a gray sky and damp air. The house was silent. Ethan had likely fallen asleep amidst the chaos of his study after drinking all night. Just as Olivia finished getting ready, her phone vibrated. It was a call from her lawyer, Mr. Davis. His voice was brisk and professional, getting straight to the point. "Mrs. Olivia, I've had my people look into it as you requested. The situation is highly suspicious, exactly as you predicted. Your husband, Ethan, is attempting to transfer large assets, and quickly." Olivia gripped her phone tighter, her heart pounding. "Please explain in detail, Mr. Davis. What has he done?" Mr. Davis shuffled some papers, the sound crackling over the speaker. "This morning, the system registered a large transfer order of about $500,000 from your joint account to the personal account of Sharon, your mother-in-law. Additionally, he is processing the transfer of his shares in his construction firm to a new LLC. The signatory as his legal representative is a woman named Maya, reportedly his former secretary." Maya. The name sounded familiar. It was the mistress whose voice Olivia had heard through the dashcam that night. He didn't just want to kill her for the inheritance. He wanted to drain everything they owned to spoil his mistress and his mother. His greed and shamelessness were far beyond Olivia's imagination. Olivia took a deep breath, her voice becoming firm. "Mr. Davis, immediately file a petition with the court. Request an emergency temporary restraining order to freeze all our joint assets on the grounds of marital dispute and suspected asset embezzlement. Do it now. Don't let him transfer another dollar. I understand, ma'am. I'll get right on it. Regarding the evidence of his affair and the murder plot, what do you have? Mr. Davis asked. Olivia glanced at the small safe in the corner of the room where she kept the USB drive containing the dashcam recording. She had carefully made 3 copies, one sent to a secret email, one given to her father, and the original in her possession. This was her ace in the hole and Ethan's death sentence. I have sufficient proof, Mr. Davis. You just handle the assets. I will reveal this evidence at the most opportune moment. When he thinks he's safe, Olivia answered firmly before hanging up. Olivia walked to the window, looking out at the yard where Ethan's car was parked. He still thought she was a foolish woman who could only cry and depend on others. He had no idea that while he was drowning in alcohol and fear, Olivia had been slowly setting a trap, blocking his every escape route. The feeling of being betrayed by the person who slept beside her wasn't just heartbreaking, it was an insult to her dignity. He had used her money, the sweat and tears of her parents, to support a mistress and plot against her. A wave of nausea rose in her throat, but she swallowed it back. To avoid suspicion from Ethan and Sharon, Olivia made an excuse to go out and buy supplies for Tiffany's funeral service. She took a cab to a hidden cafe in a small alley dozens of miles from their home. This was where Olivia had arranged to meet her father, the only man in the world who loved her unconditionally and would never betray her. As she stepped inside, Olivia saw her father sitting in a corner. His hair seemed to have turned whiter. After all that had happened, his deep, worried eyes were fixed on the door. Seeing Olivia, her father immediately stood up. His rough, working hands gripped her shoulders tightly, his eyes glistening. "My daughter, forgive me. Dad's so sorry for letting you marry that bastard. I should have forbidden it from the start." Olivia hugged her father, feeling the familiar warmth and the faint smell of tobacco on his shirt. All the strength she had gathered seemed to vanish. She sobbed like a little girl. "Dad, I was so scared. He wanted to kill me. He's so evil, Dad." Her father stroked her back, his hand trembling but full of strength. "Shh, shh, Dad's here. I won't let him get away with it. I've already contacted some old friends in the police force. They'll be quietly monitoring this case. As for the assets, don't you worry. Mr. Davis is very thorough. He won't be able to take a single penny from you." After crying her heart out, Olivia wiped her tears, sat down opposite her father, and regained her composure to discuss the next steps. "Dad, now is not the time to show our hand. Tiffany's funeral will be held soon. It will be the moment when his family is most gathered and most vulnerable. I need your help with one thing." Olivia lowered her voice, whispering her plan into her father's ear. After listening, her father's eyes shone with determination. He nodded firmly. "All right, honey. Do as you wish. I'll prepare everything from the outside to support you. But you have to promise me, be safe. If there's any danger, you run straight to me. You hear me?" "Yes, Dad, I'll be careful." Olivia squeezed her father's rough hand, grateful to still have him in the midst of this storm. Her father's love was the lighthouse guiding her, keeping her from getting lost in vengeance and despair. The meeting was brief but gave Olivia immense strength. She said goodbye to her father and stepped out of the cafe. The sky was still overcast, but in her heart, the path was clear. When she arrived home, the atmosphere of grief had intensified. A funeral tent was being set up in the front yard. The mournful sound of funeral music began to play. Ethan sat lost in thought in the living room, a scruffy beard starting to grow, his eyes dark like a panda's. Seeing Olivia return, he only glanced at her briefly before looking down again without a word. What was he afraid of? That his sister's spirit would come to demand justice, or that the law would soon come for him? The funeral hall in a city mortuary was submerged in a sorrowful white, so cold it made one's skin crawl. Even though it was the middle of a hot summer outside, wreaths of white chrysanthemums lined the entrance, their sharp scent mixing with the smell of burning incense to create a suffocating atmosphere. Ethan had decided to hold Tiffany's funeral service here, not in their hometown. He said he wanted his sister to depart peacefully in the grandest place possible, But Olivia knew he was trying to preserve the last shreds of his dignity and use the crowd to mask the fear gnawing at him. Many mourners attended, most of them business associates and employees from Ethan's company. They walked in silence, speaking carefully, but everyone's eyes held a curiosity about the sudden death of the young sister-in-law. Olivia stood beside the casket, a white band tied around her head. Her face was pale and makeup-free, showing the gauntness from days of sleepless nights. She bowed her head, acknowledging each group of mourners. Tears flowed naturally, without any need for pretense. She was crying for the brevity of human life, for the cruelty of the human heart, and for her own tragic fate. Ethan stood next to Olivia, his expensive black suit accentuating his pale face. He constantly adjusted his tie, wiping sweat from his forehead. His eyes were restless, darting around as if afraid someone would suddenly appear and expose his crime. His tension was palpable, making those who were sensitive feel that something was wrong. Just as the service was about to begin, a heart-wrenching scream from the front door shattered the false solemnity. Sharon, Olivia's mother-in-law, appeared in a worn brown cotton dress, her hair disheveled, supported by two relatives. She staggered in like someone in a daze, beating her chest, her mouth wailing her daughter's name. "Tiffany, my child, why did you leave your mother? The old burying the young. Does God have no eyes? My child died so tragically. My child." Sharon's cries were like a drill boring into Ethan's soul, making him jump. His face grew even paler. He rushed to support his mother, trying to calm her down to avoid attracting attention, but his panic was obvious. "Mom, calm down, Mom. There are a lot of people here. Don't shout." But Sharon was beyond hearing anything. The pain of losing a child, compounded by the suspicion growing from the ultrasound film, had turned her into a frantic woman. She broke free from Ethan's grasp, lunged toward the casket, and banged her head against the wooden lid, screaming, "Who killed my child? My child was healthy. The car was new. How could she die like this? Someone must have harmed her. Oh, God!" Sharon's lamentations threw the entire hall into an uproar. Whispers began to spread. Olivia noticed several plainclothes police officers standing among the crowd, their eyes carefully watching every move of their family. Ethan noticed them too. He was terrified his mother would let something slip in her emotional state, so he held her even tighter, sweat pouring down his face. He turned to Olivia, his eyes bloodshot with menace, whispering through gritted teeth, "You just stand there. Get her inside to rest. Do you want her to ruin this funeral?" Olivia slowly approached, laughing inwardly. The more afraid he was, the more Olivia had to let this drama play out. Slowly, Olivia placed her hand on Sharon's shoulder, her voice trembling but loud enough for those nearby to hear. "Mom, please be patient. Let Tiffany go in peace. If you cry like this, how can she rest? This car accident was a tragedy. No one wanted it. Please don't overthink it and make yourself sick." Olivia's words were like throwing gasoline on a fire. Sharon spun around instantly, her swollen red eyes glaring at Olivia. In her eyes, Olivia saw not love, but a burning hatred. She needed an outlet, someone to blame for her daughter's death, and Olivia, the daughter-in-law she never liked, was the perfect target. Suddenly, Sharon broke free from Ethan, lunging at Olivia with the speed of a wounded animal. Before Olivia could react, a hard slap landed on her left cheek, stinging and hot. The force of the woman, accustomed to hard work, was so strong it sent Olivia stumbling back, falling onto the cold tile floor in front of hundreds of pairs of eyes. "You!" Sharon pointed a trembling finger at Olivia's face, her voice a shrill, vengeful shriek. "You snake! You murderer! You knew there was something wrong with that car, so you deliberately gave it to my daughter, didn't you? You wanted to kill her, to kill my whole family. That's why you gave her the broken car. Give me back my daughter. Give me back my grandchild." The entire hall was stunned. All eyes were on Olivia, some sympathetic, some mocking, but most suspicious. A grieving mother accusing her daughter-in-law of murder was too grave an accusation to ignore. Olivia held her stinging cheek, tears streaming down. Not from physical pain, but because she was playing the most important role of her life. She lifted her face, looking at Sharon with tear-filled eyes, her voice trembling with shame but clear. "Mom, why would you say such things? You're slandering me. The car was brand new. I just bought it for $200,000. It was just serviced yesterday. How could it be broken? She paused, then turned to Ethan, who stood frozen like a wooden statue. Her gaze pierced his dark soul, forcing him to face reality. Ethan himself told me to give the keys to Tiffany. I told him I wanted to use a different car, but Ethan insisted. Ethan, please say something. Explain to your mother. Otherwise, she'll keep thinking I deliberately harmed your sister. Olivia's words were like a splash of cold water on Ethan's face, snapping him out of his stupor. He saw the suspicious gazes shift from Olivia to him. He saw several police officers whispering to each other. He knew if he let Olivia speak further, or let his mother continue making a scene, his terrible secret would be exposed right here. Fear overcame reason. He rushed forward, grabbed his mother's shoulders roughly, and dragged her back, his large hand clamping down tightly over her own mother's mouth. Mom, be quiet. Are you crazy? It's a new car. How would we know it would break? Don't talk nonsense. There are police here. Ethan roared, his voice choked with panic, his face contorted in a horrifying mask. His violent action toward his own mother in the middle of a funeral stunned everyone. Sharon, her mouth covered by her own son, stared with wide, desperate eyes, struggling futilely. She looked utterly pathetic. Olivia remained on the floor, tears staining her cheeks, but inside, her heart felt a cold satisfaction. The commotion in the funeral hall slowly subsided after Ethan ordered relatives to take Sharon to a rest area in the back. However, the atmosphere of suspicion and whispering did not disappear. It only grew thicker. The mourners gathered, their gazes no longer on the deceased's photo but stealing glances at Ethan, the man who now stood with his head bowed beside the coffin, his hands clenched so tight the veins bulged. His act of silencing his mother was a wordless confession of the abnormality and fear that consumed him. Olivia was helped to a corner where she sat on a cold marble bench under an old tree. Some relatives from her husband's side came to comfort her, showing sympathy for the unjust slap from her mother-in-law. But Olivia just nodded briefly and asked for some time alone to calm down. When everyone had left, Olivia slowly took out a phone with a burner SIM card she had prepared from her coat pocket. The screen lit up in the dark corner, reflecting a bitter smile on her face. It was time to launch the next psychological punishment, an attack that would sever the final bond between that mother and son. Olivia opened her gallery, selecting the ultrasound photo she had secretly copied from a file on Ethan's computer weeks ago. It was the ultrasound of Maya, his mistress. It clearly stated, male fetus, 12 weeks gestation. He had hidden this so carefully, treating that illegitimate child like a treasure while being capable of such cruelty to his own wife. Olivia attached the photo to a message and sent it to Sharon's phone number. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, typing each sharp word. Look closely, Sharon. Your son needed the money to raise his firstborn son, so your daughter had to be sacrificed. $5 million in exchange for 2 lives. Your son is very good at math. Pressing send, Olivia saw the message deliver. Her heart felt a sense of relief, but also a deep bitterness. She put the phone away, looking up at the gray sky, imagining Sharon's reaction upon receiving this message. She was a mother who blindly adored her son. Her whole life, she had hoped for a grandson to carry on the family name. But now, knowing that grandson was bought with the life of her own daughter and her unborn granddaughter, would she be happy or completely shattered? Inside the hall, the funeral music resumed, but to Olivia, it sounded like the drums of war. Olivia adjusted the white band on her head, wiped her tears, stood up, and walked slowly toward the rest area where Sharon was. She wanted to see with her own eyes as the cruel truth destroyed her mother-in-law's final, blind faith in her precious son. In the family rest area, Sharon lay limply on a sofa, one hand on her chest, her breathing shallow. Her old, wrinkled face was a mask of extreme suffering. A few female relatives surrounded her, massaging her, fanning her, and offering words of comfort. She lay still, her eyes staring blankly at the ceiling, silent tears streaming from the corners of her eyes onto the pillow. Just then, the phone in her dress pocket vibrated a single, sharp buzz in the quiet room. Sharon weakly reached for her old phone, squinting her aged eyes to read the message. Olivia hid behind the slightly ajar door, holding her breath, observing every change in her face. At first, confusion as she saw the unfamiliar ultrasound image. She moved the phone away, then brought it closer, trying to read every line carefully. And when she read the message below it, her pupils constricted. Her hand began to tremble violently, as if she had been electrocuted. Firstborn son, money, sacrifice. The words danced before her eyes, connecting all the strange events of the past. She remembered how Ethan had been complaining about company finances lately. Remembered her son's anxious look every time he took a strange phone call. Remembered Ethan's over-the-top enthusiasm when he urged his wife to give the car to his sister. And above all, she remembered the ultrasound film in Tiffany's burnt purse. 2 children, one dead with its mother at the bottom of a ravine, the other growing in another woman's womb, nurtured with the blood and flesh of her own daughter. Bastard! Sharon leaped from the sofa as if spring-loaded. Her phone fell to the floor, the battery popping out. She clutched her head, screaming in agony like a wounded animal, startling everyone in the room. She understood everything. The son she adored, the son she had always praised as a filial and smart boy, was a demon. For money, for a successor from a mistress, he had sacrificed his own sister. Olivia saw the total devastation in Sharon's eyes. The strongest fortress of belief in her life had crumbled to dust. She was no longer crying. Her eyes were empty but held a terrifying resentment. She stared into space, her mouth muttering silent curses. Olivia slowly backed away from the door. Her heart pounded with a mixture of exhilaration and satisfaction. The seed of suspicion she had planted had now grown into a poisonous tree, its roots now firmly embedded in the seemingly unbreakable bond of blood. Outside, Ethan was still busy greeting guests, playing his part as a grieving brother. He had no idea that in that small room, the mother who had always defended him unconditionally had now become his most dangerous enemy. He was standing on the edge of a cliff without realizing it, and it would only take one more gust of wind to send him plummeting, shattered like Olivia's expensive SUV. Tiffany's funeral ended in chaos and rumor. The mourners went home shaking their heads, leaving the funeral home shrouded in an eerie silence. Ethan didn't stay home to grieve for a single second. The moment the last guest left, he sped away in his car as if chased by ghosts, heading straight for his office. Olivia stood on the second-floor balcony, watching his car disappear behind the trees, counting down the time to his destruction. She knew he was going to his office to complete his last illicit transaction. Unfortunately for him, the net of the law is vast, invisible, but inescapable. All his escape routes had been secretly sealed by Olivia and Mr. Davis. About 2 hours later, as Olivia sat in the living room, pretending to go over the funeral expenses, the large iron gate was slammed open. Ethan's car screeched into the yard, braking so hard it left black tire marks on the paving stones. He got out of the car, all his usual elegance gone. He was disheveled, his tie loose, his eyes bloodshot. He stormed into the house like a wounded beast. Seeing Olivia sitting there, he strode over and slammed his fist on the glass coffee table, making the glasses on it jump and spill. He roared, his voice choked with rage. "What did you do? Why are the company accounts frozen? Why was my transfer order rejected by the bank? What game are you playing behind my back?" Olivia feigned shock, cowering on the sofa, her eyes wide with fear as she looked at him. Her trembling hand clutched her chest. She stammered, "What? What are you talking about, Ethan? I don't know anything. I've been home all day dealing with Tiffany's funeral. Why would the accounts be frozen? Maybe it was the police? They did it for the accident investigation." Olivia's innocent yet logical answer made Ethan pause. The doubt in his eyes wavered, but his instincts and the desperation of losing his money wouldn't let him let her go. He moved closer, grabbing the collar of Olivia's blouse and pulling her up. His breath, smelling of cigarettes and resentment, hit her face. "Don't play innocent with me," he hissed. "The bank's lawyer said there was an order to freeze joint assets due to a marital dispute. Besides you, who else could it be? Are you trying to cut off my lifeline? Do you want me to die in this house?" He threw Olivia back roughly. Her head spun, but she restrained herself from fighting back. She knew the security camera in the living room was recording everything. Olivia cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Ethan, you're crazy. I'm your wife. What would I gain from doing that? You're not thinking about Tiffany, who just passed away. You only care about money. I told you I didn't do it. Let me go. You're hurting me." Olivia's weak resistance only enraged him further. He was about to raise his hand to slap her, but a shout from the top of the stairs stopped him. "Stop! Are you going to kill her to silence her, just like you did to your sister?" Sharon stood there, her hand gripping the railing, her body trembling. She looked at her son with a strange, disgusted gaze, as if looking at the filthiest trash in the world. Ethan let go of Olivia, turning to face his mother. Her sudden appearance and her meaningful words shocked him. His anger turned to confusion. He never expected the mother who always defended him would now be on Olivia's side. More importantly, his mother knew something. Sharon walked up to Ethan. Without a word, she raised her thin, wrinkled hand and slapped her beloved son hard across the face. The slap carried all the disappointment, pain, and vengeance of a mother who discovered her son was a demon in human form. Ethan clutched his face, staring at his mother in shock. "Mom, what the hell? Why did you hit me? I'm stressed out with work, and instead of helping, you do this." But Sharon didn't let him finish. She took out her old phone, opened the ultrasound picture Olivia had sent, and shoved it in Ethan's face, her voice trembling but sharp. "Look at this, your firstborn son, right? For this bastard child, for that whore, you were willing to push your own sister to her death." Seeing the familiar ultrasound image, Ethan's face turned deathly pale. He staggered back, nearly falling. "Why? Why do you have this? Who sent it?" He turned to look at Olivia, but she was sitting huddled on the couch, sobbing, looking nothing like the mastermind behind all this. Panic muddled his thoughts. He only knew his darkest secret had been exposed to the person he feared most. Sharon lunged at him, grabbing the collar of his designer shirt and ripping it. "You bastard! Give me back Tiffany! I raised you to kill your own sister? If you needed money for another woman, you should have just said so. Why did you do something so monstrous?" Attacked by his mother and pressured by his frozen assets, Ethan could no longer control himself. He violently pushed his mother's hands away, shoving her so hard she fell to the floor. He roared, his face red. "Mom, shut up! What do you know? I did this for our family too. You think I wanted Tiffany to die? It was supposed to be Olivia. If Olivia had died, I would have gotten $5 million. You don't understand. It's all because of that damn Tiffany dying in her sister-in-law's place." The horrific confession tumbled out of his mouth in his loss of control, silencing the entire room. Sharon lay on the floor, staring at her son in disbelief. From her seat, Olivia secretly adjusted the angle of her phone's camera, hidden behind a flower vase, recording the moment Ethan signed his own death warrant. He had confessed. He had admitted with his own mouth that his original target was her. Ethan realized his mistake and quickly covered his mouth. He saw his mother staring at him like a monster, saw his wife cowering in fear. He knew there was no turning back. He ran his hands through his hair, growling like a cornered animal, then turned and fled to his room, slamming the door. He left his mother lying in agony. Olivia helped Sharon up and escorted her to her room. She said nothing, just stared blankly at the ceiling. Olivia knew she was full of regret and suffering, but any pity Olivia had for her was long gone. Olivia returned to her room, pressing her ear to the wall, listening to the movements in Ethan's room. His phone rang several times. At first, he didn't answer, but finally, unable to bear it, he picked up. Olivia heard his hoarse voice. "Hello, why do you keep calling? I'm dealing with a lot right now." On the other end was Maya, his mistress. But today, her voice was no longer sweet. It was sharp and harsh. Even without speakerphone, Olivia could hear her shouting, "You're dealing with a lot? I'm the one who's going crazy. You promised to transfer the money to pay off my brother's debts, right? Why is my account still empty? The loan sharks are surrounding my house. Are you going to let us die?" Ethan tried to calm her down, but his helplessness was obvious. "Maya, calm down. Listen to me. My accounts were frozen by my wife. I'm trying to figure something out. Tell them to wait a few more days, okay? I promise I'll get the money. How is our son? Make sure nothing happens to him. He was still dreaming of his heir, still believing his mistress truly loved him, but Maya didn't care. I don't care. If I don't see $500,000 in my account by noon tomorrow, don't blame me for what I do. I'll spread everything about us all over the internet. Let the whole world know who you really are. Let your wife know you've been supporting me with her money. Oh, and one more thing. I'm getting rid of this baby. You have no money, don't even dream of having a son. The call ended. Olivia heard Ethan scream in despair, followed by the sound of things being thrown against the wall. He was cornered from all sides. The law had frozen his assets, his own mother had turned against him, and now the mistress he trusted most had shown her true colors. He was completely alone. Olivia sat on her bed, a cynical smile on her face. The price of betrayal sometimes comes not from the victim's revenge, but from the cruelty of one's own accomplices. The next morning, as fog still blanketed the yard, a police car pulled up in front of their gate. The doorbell rang, firm and cold, waking the entire house. Olivia opened the door, trying to keep her face calm, though she feigned trembling hands. 2 uniformed officers entered. We're here to invite Mr. Ethan and Mrs. Olivia to the station to provide further statements regarding the traffic accident. Ethan came down the stairs, his clothes wrinkled, his eyes sunken. Seeing the police, his legs went weak, and he nearly collapsed. He knew this summons was not as simple as the last one. A criminal's instinct told him the noose was tightening. In the cold interrogation room, under the white fluorescent light, the investigator placed a transparent evidence bag on the table. Inside was a severed and partially burnt brake line, but the clean, sharp cut was still clearly visible. Mr. Ethan, this is the brake line from the crime scene. Forensic analysis shows this cut was not due to wear and tear but was intentionally severed with steel wire cutters. Do you have an explanation? Ethan stared at the brake line, his face ashen, his entire shirt soaked with sweat. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He shook his head frantically. I don't know. Maybe a burglar broke in. I couldn't have done it. The officer was unmoved. A burglar? The security cameras around your property recorded no unauthorized entry into the garage that night. Furthermore, the nature of this cut indicates the perpetrator has a good understanding of vehicle mechanics. You are a construction engineer and understand cars. What are your thoughts? Olivia sat beside him, feigning shock. Severed? Who could be so cruel, Ethan? Do you have enemies? Why would they want to kill us? Olivia's innocent question made Ethan panic even more. He looked at her, his eyes pleading and terrified. He knew she was acting, but he didn't dare expose her. Exposing Olivia now would be the same as admitting he was the killer. The atmosphere became incredibly tense. Every second felt like torture for Ethan. He could feel the heat of the truth burning him and the coldness of the handcuffs awaiting him. He buried his head on the table, his hands clutching his hair, trembling violently. The silence in the interrogation room was so heavy that the ticking of the wall clock was deafeningly loud, each tick like a nail being hammered into the coffin that was slowly closing on Ethan's fate. His eyes stared blankly at the brake line in the evidence bag. The overwhelming fear then morphed into uncontrollable rage. A cornered animal will always bite blindly, and Ethan was now that animal. He suddenly shot to his feet, his chair screeching back. His trembling finger pointed straight at Olivia's face, his eyes bloodshot. It was her, officer. She knew the car was broken. She knew the brake lines were cut. That's why she deliberately gave the keys to Tiffany. She wanted to kill me, but Tiffany became the victim. She's the cruelest woman in the world. Ethan's crazed accusation stunned the room. The investigators frowned. Olivia cowered in her chair, her eyes wide with fear as she looked at her raging husband. Tears streamed down her cheeks, and she just shook her head, her body trembling, creating a stark contrast to Ethan's ferocity. Ethan wasn't finished. Don't play innocent. You saw me do it, didn't you? Why didn't you say anything? Why did you give the car to my sister? You're a demon. You framed me. I should kill you to avenge Tiffany. He lunged forward, but 2 officers swiftly restrained him, pinning him to the table. Ethan struggled, his mouth spewing curses. Olivia watched the scene, her heart aching, not out of pity for him, but for herself, for having once trusted such a cruel man. He wasn't sorry for cutting the brake lines, he was just angry his plan had failed and his sister was the victim. On the brink of ruin, he was ready to shift all the blame onto her. The investigator looked at Ethan with cold disgust, then gestured for his subordinates to handcuff him. He turned to Olivia, his voice softening. "Mrs. Olivia, please calm down. Your husband is in an unstable emotional state. We will take him out to calm down." After the door closed, leaving the room quiet but still tense, Olivia knew this was the crucial moment to deliver the final blow, to turn Ethan's mad accusations into a knife that would stab him back. Olivia wiped her face, trying to compose herself, but her shoulders still trembled. She looked at the investigator, her voice breaking. "Sir, what's wrong with him? Why would he say such terrifying things? I'm his wife. I trusted my life to him. Why would he think I'm so cruel? There's no way I could have known the car was broken. If I had known, I would rather have died myself than let this happen to Tiffany." She lowered her head, sobbing. "He's been acting strangely lately, sir. Maybe the shock of losing his sister was too much, and he started hallucinating and blaming me. He's the backbone of our family, my only support. Now that he's like this, how am I supposed to live? Please help him, sir. Don't let him get any worse." The officer looked at her with sympathy and conviction. Before him was a weak, unfortunate woman, suffering from loss and her husband's mental breakdown. Compared to the raging Ethan, Olivia's sincere words were far more convincing. "We understand your situation, ma'am," the investigator said reassuringly. "We will consider Mr. Ethan's behavior and words from a criminal psychology perspective. But please rest assured, the law prioritizes evidence over confessions. No one can accuse an innocent person." Olivia accepted a glass of warm water, a cold smile playing on her lips internally. She had played her role as the patient wife to the very end, turning Ethan's attack into proof of his mental instability and cruelty. The harder he accused her, the crazier he looked in the eyes of the investigators. This was the psychological trap she had set. Hiding her cold smile, Olivia looked at the officer with a sad face. "Thank you, sir. I just hope the truth comes out soon, so Tiffany's spirit can rest in peace. My family is already ruined, sir." After Ethan was taken to a temporary holding cell, the atmosphere in the interrogation room relaxed slightly, but the tension remained. Olivia knew it was time to provide the last piece of the puzzle, the motive. "Sir," Olivia said slowly, "there's actually one thing I was afraid to say, for fear of tarnishing Ethan's name. But I'm worried he might have been desperate enough to do something crazy." The officer was immediately attentive. "Please, tell us, ma'am. Any information is crucial." Olivia took a deep breath. "Lately, Ethan has been very strange, sir. He's been taking calls secretly, getting angry all the time. I accidentally saw a message about a debt collection from a strange number. The amount was in the millions. He was also having an affair with a woman named Maya. That woman often sent messages demanding money and asking to be married. I also once overheard him talking about my inheritance." Olivia paused, then added the final, devastating sentence. "I just received an inheritance of $5 million, sir. I was planning to invest it, but Ethan kept pressuring me to put it into our joint account to pay off his debts. I hadn't agreed yet. Then this happened. Sir, is it possible he wanted to harm me to get the insurance money and my inheritance to pay off his debts and support his mistress?" The innocent yet logical question was like a key that unlocked the door to the truth. Gambling debts, a pressuring mistress, financial strain, and a large inheritance from his wife, it was the most perfect motive for premeditated murder. The investigator nodded slowly, now fully convinced of this hypothesis. "The information you've provided is invaluable. We will immediately investigate Mr. Ethan's debts and extramarital affair. If this is true, this is not just a case of tampering, but a premeditated murder with a very vile motive." Olivia lowered her head, hiding the cold smile at the corner of her lips. Leaving the police station as night fell, dark clouds hung overhead as if about to swallow the small city. Ethan was released temporarily, pending further investigation, but was forbidden from leaving his residence. However, seeing his dazed state and fearful eyes, Olivia knew he wouldn't wait. A cornered animal's instinct would drive him to flee. Arriving home, Ethan said nothing. He went straight to their room, rummaging through closets and drawers. He took out a small safe hidden behind a painting, his hands trembling as he entered the code. He grabbed everything valuable inside: cash, gold bars, Olivia's wedding jewelry, and important property deeds, stuffing it all into a black suitcase. Olivia stood leaning against the doorframe, watching him with a cold gaze. He was running away. He was going to leave his suffering mother, leave the wife he once promised to be faithful to, leave all his sins behind. He only cared about himself. "Where are you going? Running away?" Olivia asked calmly. "The police told you not to leave the house, right?" Ethan jumped. He glared at Olivia with bloodshot eyes. "Shut up. Mind your own business. You want to report me? If I go down, I'm taking you with me. Get out of my way." He shoved Olivia aside and ran down the stairs. Olivia stumbled, watching his cowardly back, laughing to herself. He thought he could escape. He didn't know his every move was under the surveillance of Olivia and the investigators. The car he was about to drive, the bank accounts he would use, all had been frozen and tracked. Olivia went downstairs to see Sharon sitting lost in thought in the living room, watching her son run out. "Ethan, where are you going, son? Are you going to leave your mother all alone?" she called out weakly. Ethan paused at the door, a flicker of hesitation in his eyes, but then selfishness took over. "You just stay here for now, Mom. I have to hide for a while. When everything is safe, I'll come get you." After saying that, he got into his car and sped off, leaving his old, lonely, and desperate mother in the middle of the cold, large house. Olivia looked at Sharon without a shred of pity. She had spoiled her son his entire life. Now she had to bear the consequences of being cruelly abandoned. Olivia took out her phone and called the investigator, her voice calm and cold. "Hello, officer. My husband Ethan just fled in his car. He's carrying a lot of cash and gold. He's heading toward the outskirts of the city." Ethan's car had just pulled out of the gate when it braked suddenly. In his panic, he had just remembered that his passport and several important bank books were still kept by Sharon in a cloth bag she always carried. He crazily reversed the car, ramming the closing iron gate until it was forced open. He jumped out like a madman, stormed back into the house, and grabbed his mother, who was sitting in a daze. "Mom, come with me! Get that money bag now!" he roared, his rough hand grabbing her wrist, dragging her without care. "Ethan, what are you doing? It hurts! Where are you taking me?" she pleaded. But Ethan had lost his humanity. In his eyes, his mother was no longer a mother, but a walking safe. He shoved her into the car, slammed the door, and floored it. The car sped down the deserted suburban roads toward an old villa left by his father, a place he considered the safest. Inside the car, the atmosphere was suffocating. "Stop, son. Where can you run? If you're guilty, just turn yourself in. Maybe the law will be lenient." "Don't add to your mistakes," Sharon pleaded, trembling. But all she got was a fist pounding on the steering wheel. "Mom, shut up. Turn myself in and rot in prison? I have to live. I have to get out of the country. Give me the money. After that, you can go wherever you want. I don't have time to deal with you." Those heartless words were the final blade that severed the fragile thread between mother and son. Sharon was stunned, the cloth bag falling from her lap. So her son had come back not because he was worried about her, but for her last savings. To the very last second, he remained selfish and cruel. The car turned onto a muddy dirt road leading to the old villa. A light rain began to fall, just like the dark future that awaited him. The old villa stood alone in the middle of an empty lot, its mossy walls looming like a vacant tombstone. Just as Ethan turned off the engine, intending to grab the money bag and drag his mother inside, sirens suddenly wailed from all directions, shattering the silence. Red and blue lights flooded their car, turning the place into the stage of a tragic comedy where he was the pathetic main character. "Ethan, you are surrounded. Step out of the vehicle, put down any weapons and raise your hands," a voice boomed from a loudspeaker. Ethan sat in the car, his face ashen, his hands trembling on the steering wheel. He looked at his mother, cowering in fear. Knowing there was no escape, the instinct and madness of a cornered man made him desperate. He grabbed the suitcase of money and gold, jumped out of the car, and tried to climb the back wall to escape into the woods. But after just a few steps, he tripped and fell on the slippery grass. 2 officers swiftly pounced on him, pinning him to the mud. "Let me go! I'm innocent! My money! Give me back my money!" Ethan screamed, thrashing in the mud, trying to reach the suitcase whose contents had spilled out polymer banknotes and jewelry glittering on the dirty ground. His appearance was utterly pathetic. Cold handcuffs snapped onto his wrists, ending all his futile efforts. Olivia got out of the investigator's car, watching the scene from a distance without a hint of pity. Sharon was also helped out of the car. Seeing her son pinned to the ground, his face covered in mud, his hands cuffed, she didn't scream or run. She just stood there, her legs trembling, and then collapsed into a sitting position, her eyes vacant and hopeless. She had witnessed the destruction of her idol, the collapse of what she called the family's hope. The net of the law is vast, invisible but inescapable. He who sows the wind shall reap the whirlwind. That is the eternal, undeniable law. In the interrogation room, the atmosphere was even more tense. Ethan sat there, both hands cuffed to the chair. His head was bowed, but his attitude remained stubborn. Despite being caught while fleeing, he continued to deny all accusations related to his sister's death. "I didn't kill her. I was just afraid my wife would harm me to steal my assets, so I took the money to hide. The brake failure was a technical defect, or maybe a rat chewed the cable. How would I know? You have no proof." "Don't accuse me," he argued hoarsely. The investigator looked at him with a mixture of pity and disgust. He gestured to his subordinate. The door opened, and Mr. Davis walked in with a laptop and a small black USB drive. Seeing it, Ethan's pupils constricted. Mr. Davis connected the USB to the laptop, turned the screen toward Ethan, and pressed play. The video recording from 3 a.m. in the garage appeared clearly. The image of Ethan in his sweatsuit, holding steel wire cutters, slowly severing the brake lines one by one, was so vivid. The sound of the cutters snipping through metal, the sound of his breathing, and especially the conversation on speakerphone with his mistress Maya, were crystal clear. "Don't forget to clean everything up. That $5 million has to belong to our son." Ethan stared at the screen, his face turning from pale to gray. His body trembled violently. He never imagined that Olivia's paranoia in installing a backup battery for her dashcam had become his death sentence. His mouth hung open, unable to speak. Sweat soaked his entire body. All his denials, all his lies, were now a joke in the face of this irrefutable evidence. He lowered his head to the table, his voice breaking with a despairing sob. He knew it was all over. In the observation room next door, through a one-way mirror, Sharon witnessed everything. She sat stiffly, her eyes wide as she stared at the screen playing the video of her son's crime. Every image, every sound, was like a knife twisting in a mother's heart. She saw the son she had given birth to, the son she had always been proud of, holding the tool to end his own sister's life. She heard the sweet voice of that whore and the cold laughter of Ethan as he talked about Olivia's death. $5 million. A son. Those words echoed in her head, piercing her belated regret. She remembered when Ethan forced Olivia to give him the keys, remembered his anxious face at the funeral, remembered the slap he had given her. It was all no coincidence, but a cruel, calculated plan. Her greed and blind indulgence had raised a demon. And today, that demon had devoured its own family, killing her daughter. "Tiffany, my child, forgive your mother. It was my fault. I raised a snake in our home." Sharon screamed mournfully, banging her head against the glass wall, beating her chest. Tears and snot covered her wrinkled face. The shock was too much for her soul to bear. Suddenly, she stopped crying and began to laugh hysterically, a soulless, mad laugh. She pointed at the screen, muttering nonsensical phrases. "Firstborn son. I want to go for a walk. Tiffany, come home for dinner, honey." Her eyes became vacant, her vision blurring between reality and illusion. She had gone insane. The price for this family's greed and crime was too high. One dead, one in prison, and one insane. Olivia stood outside, watching the scene through the glass. Her heart felt heavy, but there was no satisfaction. Only a deep sadness for the human condition, drowned in a sea of suffering. The trial for Ethan's murder case was held on an overcast day. Dark clouds blanketed the city, making the atmosphere in the courtroom even more somber. Olivia sat in the victim's gallery, with her father and Mr. Davis beside her. Her hands were clenched tightly, not from fear, but from a mixture of emotions. Across the room, in the defendant's box, Ethan stood with his head bowed. The loose, black and white striped prison uniform made him look incredibly thin and pathetic. He didn't dare look at Olivia. His mother, Sharon, did not attend. After the severe shock at the police station, she had lost her mind. Sometimes lucid, sometimes delirious, she just hugged an old pillow while calling her daughter's name. She was now being cared for by a niece in her hometown. Her family, the fortress of pride she had always boasted of, had crumbled. The presiding judge read the indictment. Every one of Ethan's crimes was detailed clearly, from planning to cut the brake lines to kill his wife for her inheritance, to causing the death of his own sister, and finally, asset embezzlement and attempting to flee. When allowed to give a final statement, Ethan trembled, his voice hoarse and broken. I know my mistake is unforgivable. I did it because greed blinded me, hurting my sister, making my mother suffer, and betraying my wife. I only ask for a lenient sentence so I can sooner get back to beg for my sister's forgiveness. His belated remorse earned no sympathy. Olivia looked at him without pity. Life has no what-ifs. Spilled water cannot be gathered back. After deliberation, the presiding judge read the verdict. Considering the defendant's extremely heinous acts, his base motives, and the resulting loss of life, the court hereby sentences the defendant, Ethan, to 20 years in prison and orders him to pay full material and non-material damages to the victim. The gavel fell, ending this tear-filled family tragedy. Ethan collapsed. As he was being led out, he paused for a moment in front of Olivia. Their eyes met. In his, there was despair, regret, and a plea. But Olivia just turned her face away, looking out the window where a light rain had begun to fall. 20 years, long enough to change a person's life. But was it enough to erase all the sins he had committed? The criminal trial was over. Now it was Olivia's turn to handle the divorce and civil matters. With a clear verdict and irrefutable evidence, the court quickly granted Olivia's unilateral divorce petition. After deducting the debts Ethan had incurred and compensation costs, the majority of their joint assets went to Olivia. She was also able to easily regain control of her $5 million inheritance without any obstacles. The day Olivia held the divorce decree with the red court seal, the sky was bright, but her heart felt empty. Olivia returned to the large house that had once been built with so much hope. Now, all that remained was a cold, soulless building. She had long since taken down the wedding photos. She hired people to clear out Ethan's belongings. What could be sold was sold. The rest was thrown away. Olivia decided to sell the house. Though beautiful and luxurious, it was too full of painful memories. She needed a fresh start, a truly clean slate. The sale went smoothly. A young newlywed couple bought it. Seeing them, Olivia remembered herself 3 years ago, so naive. She smiled bitterly, secretly praying they would not experience a tragedy like hers. On moving day, Olivia only took a few boxes of personal belongings and her British short-hair cat. She stood at the door one last time, took a deep breath, then turned and walked away decisively. Olivia moved into a luxury apartment in the city center, smaller but warm and safe. From her 20th floor balcony, she could see the glittering city lights. No more dark corners, no more conspiracies. Time passed quickly. It had been over a year since Ethan went to prison. Olivia's life slowly returned to stability. The wound in her heart, though scarred over, still ached sometimes. She kept herself busy with business, using her inheritance to invest in a chain of organic food stores. One afternoon, as Olivia returned home from work, she saw a strange envelope among the stack of bills. It was a cheap, yellow paper envelope, addressed in a neat but trembling hand. The sender, inmate Ethan, State Correctional Institution. Olivia's heart skipped a beat. A letter from him. After more than a year, he had written, what could it contain? Regret, an apology, or blame and a request for money? Olivia held the envelope, her mind at war. Curiosity wanted to open it, but reason told her to throw it away. The horrible memories came flooding back. The image of Ethan holding the cutters, his cold voice conspiring with his mistress. It was all like a knife twisting in her heart again. She remembered Tiffany, who had died a gruesome death, and Sharon, who had gone insane. It was all his doing. He deserved no attention, not even Olivia's curiosity. Why read his letter? To make her heart waver? To feel the pain again? No. Olivia would not let him hurt her anymore, not even through a piece of paper. The past was dead, and the man named Ethan had long been dead in her heart. Olivia got up and walked to the paper shredder in the corner of her study. She fed the unopened envelope into it. The sharp blades tore the paper into meaningless confetti. Watching the white scraps fall into the bin, her heart felt light, as if a heavy weight had been lifted. Whatever he wanted to say, he could keep it to himself, let it gnaw at him within the cold prison walls. 3 years later, Olivia sat in her office, sipping warm chamomile tea, looking at the city transforming under the bright morning sun. 3 years, it was enough for Olivia to be reborn from the ashes. Her business was thriving. Her chain of organic food stores had many branches. It not only brought her material wealth, but also affirmed her self-worth. She was no longer a weak woman dependent on a husband, but a tough and respected businesswoman. She drove a red convertible sports car, enjoying a freedom she had never dared to dream of. On weekends, she often visited her father. He was older now, but his spirits were brighter seeing his daughter's revival. They would often sit on the porch, drinking tea and talking. Her father never brought up the past. He just looked at Olivia and smiled gently, his eyes shining with pride. Sometimes, the past still visited her in dreams, but they were no longer nightmares. They were just a faded old movie, reminding Olivia of a bitter lesson, that the human heart is hard to fathom, that one should never give trust blindly, and most importantly, that a woman must know how to love and protect herself. She had forgiven herself for her past naivety and let go of the grudge against those who had hurt her, not because they deserved forgiveness, but because she deserved peace. Olivia put down her teacup, picked up her designer bag, and stepped out of her office. Today, she had an important meeting with a major business partner, a polite and capable man who had been pursuing her for 6 months. Olivia wasn't in a hurry to respond. Her heart needed a little more time to open up, but she was no longer afraid of love. She believed that somewhere out there was still a sincere man worthy of her. The car sped along in the morning breeze, its smooth engine humming like a song of freedom. Olivia saw herself in the rearview mirror, a beautiful, proud woman smiling back at herself. The storm had passed, and the sky after a storm is always clear. This wasn't the end, but the beginning of a new, brilliant, and hopeful journey.